to the channel, folks. Mysterio here for a roundup of Empire Magazine's coverage on Spider-Man Far From Home. So there's quite a lot in this, and it's been compiled together into kind of a review roundup. So I'm going to give you the lowdown on this today. If you are new here, just real quick, make sure you hit subscribe, and also if you enjoy this video, be sure to hit that like button. It really helps the channel out, and also sharing as well. So let's talk about Spider-Man No More. Is Spider-Man looking to give up the proverbial cape and cowl, I guess you could say, but his Spidey costume? Is he looking to give it up? Because of course, you know, in the trailers, it doesn't really look like he's that bothered about wearing the mantle of Spider-Man and taking it to Europe or not. And he also seems a little bit let down because he says, you know, Nick Fury has hijacked our summer vacation. But the director has just out and out stated that no, we're trying not to be melodramatic in that way. You have a lot of things that have been done very successfully in the past, so you consciously avoid them. This is just for a week. Peter wants to go on vacation, and he's earned it, which, yeah, makes absolute sense if you have seen Avengers Endgame. Now, a lot of questions were, you know, when does this movie take place? Clearly it's after Avengers Endgame. We know that now when we've looked back at the second trailer. And the director, Watts, has come out and stated that we had talked about do the Spider-Man films take place in his sophomore year, junior year, senior year, Harry Potter style. We started homing in on that idea of the class trip. How do you continue the fun of a kid in high school with his high school friends? So although it is set directly, well, pretty much directly after Endgame, there's no clear-cut place in his school year. So we don't actually know how old Peter Parker is going to be in this movie. Now, of course, we know that there is, you know, a lot of travel in this film. We've seen Venice, we've seen London, and the director came out and stated about the geographical style of London, which in Thor: The Dark World wasn't right at all, which is super irritating because being British, it doesn't take much to just, you know your geography. But hey, never mind. And you also, as well, you just think that these movie companies would actually get that right, but apparently not. So the director did say, I think we got our London geography right. You don't put Big Ben next to the Tower Bridge and hope no one will notice, which is, of course, a pretty big ribbing on Thor: The Dark World. But then he also stated that there was a poster recently, actually, where Spider-Man Far From Home, which had the London Eye the wrong way round. Again, sounds like a small thing, but, you know, attention to detail is everything. This movie is screened around the globe. And obviously people who are familiar with those geographical locations will be a bit bemused and baffled by that. So Watts did actually come out and say, I did not approve that, which is quite funny. Now, a lot of people are not happy with MJ in this film, and Watts does address a different style of MJ. So he says that she is a lot more Ali Sheedy in our movies. She's not the coolest girl in school, she's not the prom queen, she's not popular. We're exploring that dynamic between two oddballs and loners. We think it's cool. The movie is about Peter wanting to get together with the girl. That's what makes him want to go on this trip. So it's not even really a out-and-out field trip, school trip. He doesn't just want a vacation. He actually genuinely wants to just go there to get with MJ, which is, again, quite comical. We did have some big reveals about Peter Parker's relationship with Nick Fury. And they stated that the relationship between Peter and Tony is admiration, but the relationship between Peter and Nick Fury is one of fear. I think he's a little bit terrified of him. When he shows up, it's no joke. He knows this isn't some silly mission. He knows the stakes are real, and it's time to step up, which I find that interesting because whenever Iron Man was talking to Spider-Man, I mean, it was a very real mission at that point in time, wasn't it? But hey, never mind. Interesting nonetheless. Especially because we're set to be getting a very different take on Nick Fury, one which is playing catch-up. Now, Watts does touch on Spider-Man being in various parts of the globe. He says that seeing Spider-Man in Venice was always on the list. I've seen Spider-Man swinging over buildings, but not over canals. We love the idea of a big night festival going on in Prague, a beautiful medieval city, which I can attest to. I've been to Prague. It is really, really nice. Go in winter and have some Czech beer. So Watts actually talked about the elementals for a little bit here. He said that I wanted to figure out if there was a way to take some more of the definitely B and C level villains and bring them to life in a way that's surprisingly cool. who are people not going to expect? So that's kind of why they came up with the idea of having the elementals. Now, of course, we know that there's going to be a heavy element of visual effects in this film, and Watts does touch on that. He says that obviously it opens up a new style of combat for Spider-Man when you have these bigger creatures, or a creature that's so hot you can't get close to him because it melts his webs, or a water creature that you can't punch because you go right through it. So we're going to see a very different style of Spider-Man fighting here, I believe, anyway. Now, of course, one of the big reveals here is Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio from an alternate dimension and all this kind of stuff. Believe it or not, when Tobey Maguire injured his back filming Spider-Man, or between filming anyway, Jake Gyllenhaal was due to replace Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man 2, and then miraculously, Tobey Maguire came around and didn't have an injured back anymore. But because of that, obviously, Jake Gyllenhaal does have a long-running history with the Spider-Man franchise, and Jake Gyllenhaal has reflected on that. He said, I guess you could say that when you work long enough, stories tend to come back around. There was a beautiful thing that happened here. Now, he also says that watching Tom Holland, I have to say that I wouldn't have held a candle. So that's quite good. You know, obviously he's reflecting on that, saying, you know, even if he had played Spider-Man, watching the new Tom Holland, he wouldn't have held a candle to him. He wouldn't have been anywhere near as good. Now, a lot of comments have been made about Jake Gyllenhaal choosing a project like this. Whether you choose to agree with me or not, my personal belief is that Jake Gyllenhaal is a fantastic actor. And he's said a few times on the topic of this, but just to reiterate, he said that we met with him on some Marvel Studios movies long after Spider-Man 2 and just never found the right timing or the right thing. So why now? This was a really interesting take on the characters. I really loved it and thought, let's have a little fun. And that's something he said many, many times in interviews before. He said that he thinks he can do something new with his character. He thinks that it's going to be fun. It's going to be a different take, which is good. In terms of Mysterio being a villain or being a good guy, bad guy, whatever, Watts, the director, did state that in the comics, Mysterio is traditionally a washed-up old stuntman. He uses gas and puts springs in his shoes to try to trick people. The idea of Mysterio as a hero was something we had never explored before. Yes, never been explored in films, but it's definitely been explored in comics. Having the power of Marvel behind you means that you can make those crazy swaps. You'd hope there's a little more to it than it seems with Mysterio, but we went with Mysterio being a hero, which I thought would really surprise people. Mysterio was always at the top of the list. And Gyllenhaal obviously chimes in and says, villain or hero, I don't think that's how you can define him. So that's quite interesting. Again, I think Mysterio will undoubtedly not be a hero who will probably just toe the line and, on a bit of a threadbare between villain and hero there. Now, obviously, the fishbowl was a big point of contention. Were they ever going to include the fishbowl? Obviously, we've seen it now and it looked great. I love it. And Watts did turn around and said, look, that was so fun to design. You take away the fishbowl, that's not Mysterio. It's such a classic design. It's my favorite design of all the Spider-Man characters. So it's good to see that the director was all supportive of that particular part of Mysterio, because you just can't not have it. You have to. Obviously, there is no Iron Man, and Quentin Beck has been teased to kind of fill that hole that Iron Man is leaving. And Tom Holland says the relationship on the page changed when Jake and I met each other and became very fast friends. So you get to see two people become really quick friends and teammates essentially. It's kind of like a two-hander between Jake and I. It's a pretty fun ride to see this kind of back and forth banter between these two superheroes fighting these crazy monsters. So interesting. Very, very interesting there. And just to round it all out, did Tom accidentally reveal the film's title? And he says, no, of course, that was totally planned. That was a complete press stunt. I'm so cautious with what I put online when it comes to spoilers and stuff. Come on, there's no way I would do that. I'm way better with spoilers than Mark Ruffalo. I love him, but he's a terrible spoiler. Sometimes they pair us together because it's easier to control one source than have both of us out there. So that's, again, kind of... We all knew that he didn't. It was staged. We all knew that. But look, there's the big roundup of the Empire magazine article. So there's the big roundup of the Empire magazine article. What do you think about this, guys? Are you looking forward to this? In fact, it's tracking now to really be benefiting from Endgame's numbers, which I always thought it was going to anyway. Having seen Endgame, it's pretty much a no-brainer that it would have benefited from that. But anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts on this down below in the comment section. As always, if you are new here, please do hit subscribe and stay up to date on the world of pop culture and movie news. Crush the bell notification icon. Guys, thanks so much for watching. I've been Mr. Age. Take care.